and welcome to this video about making maths practical at home. With home learning at the moment, making maths practical and showing your child how you can apply the skills that they learn is very important. You as a parent working with your child can give them the best opportunities. Maths is all around us, and there are lots of practical activities that you can do as a parent and encourage your child to do as part of their daily routine. And this will help them to build their understanding of maths, and from understanding becomes success. Children's early maths skills start to develop from birth, as they are instinctively attracted to the shapes that make up the human face. As they grow and develop, they continue to learn through their play and sensory experiences. The key skills that children learn in their early years, and your support can make a huge difference to your child's development. Small, simple changes can make the world of difference. I'm now going to discuss some skills that are very important in maths, and the first is language and vocabulary. Sometimes maths may appear very complex because of the words that children don't understand, but building words like more than, less than, heavy, light, tall, short into your daily routine helps to build an understanding of what maths actually means in a physical sense. If you're cooking, for example, having 500 grams of sugar and saying that it is heavier than 300 grams of flour is an important part of building understanding with children. Visually being able to see something helps to build understanding, and from understanding comes success. Another way you can do this is measure your children. If you have more than one child, you could measure their heights, and one might be 1.25 meters tall and another be 0.8 meters tall, and you can tell them which is taller and which is shorter and get them to use that vocabulary. Sequencing numbers is another important skill in maths, and now this involves counting forwards and backwards. Ways you can incorporate this into your day are, for instance, when you walk up the stairs with your child, as they walk up the stairs, they could count their steps. That is an excellent way of getting them to increase their ability to count. Understanding position. This is an important skill because children need to understand where things are. So, for example, number 1 is next to number 2 on the number line, but it's not next to number 20. They need to be able to understand the positions of numbers and how one number is larger than another. Additionally to this, they need to be able to understand other positions in general. For example, if you put a cup on top of a table, they need to understand that that's on the table. And if they sit under a table, they are under the table rather than on top of it. Making the difference between these two is very important. Likewise is showing awareness of time. Time is part of our daily routine, and it's probably one of the most important skills to learn. They need to be able to know their daily routine, talk about today, tomorrow, yesterday, what they did last week, what they're going to do this morning, what they're going to do tonight, what they did last Thursday. They need to be able to show where things are in a scale of time. But also, they need to be able to read clocks. You can build this into your routine very easily. You can say at 12 o'clock, we're going to have lunch today. And you could make sure that they read the clock and tell you how long it is to lunch. You could tell them that dinner is at 6 o'clock and they could count how long it is till 6 o'clock. Other ways you can do that is other points of the day, sort of bedtime and other routines that are part of your day. Being aware of shapes and patterns is also very important. Now, there are 2D shapes and 3D shapes that we're all aware of, but as children, it's difficult to recognise the pattern between these. They need to be able to begin to name from a square to a cube, and notice that a cube is 3D, whereas a square is 2D. They also need to be able to recognise patterns in the sides of the shapes and the angles that are inside them, and this will all come with practice. And once you start building other parts of maths into your day, you can easily get them to understand this. For example, a cereal box is a cuboid and you could get them to name the shape. Likewise, a cone that you have as an ice cream, that is also a 3D shape that you could get them to name and understand. Physically holding parts of maths is very important for getting children's minds active and understanding math. One-to-one correspondence is very important, knowing that when we count, one number represents one object. Number one represents number one, and this can come in many different forms. So one that's written as a word, O-N-E, or number one that's written as a number. They are the same thing, but they need to be able to understand that they're grouped, and that is different to number two. That leads on to what my next point is they need to be able to understand conversions, knowing that 4 is always 4, no matter how it looks. Is it the number 4 written, or is it the word 4, F-O-U-R? Is it 4 buttons on a coat? Is it 4 elephants in a zoo? Are they 4 years old? They need to be understanding that 4 means the same wherever, but 5 is something different to 4. Over the next few slides, I'm going to outline some ways that you can make maths practical in your home and build it into your routine. The first way is learning through exploration. Now, maths is all around us, and there are lots of practical things that you can do as part of your routine. And learning through play is the best way to do this. You, as a parent, though, must guide your child and not direct them. Don't tell them exactly what to do, but guide them. Give them thoughts of what you think are helpful to them. Another important thing to outline here is that once children know the basics, they know how to add, subtract, times and divide, they can do most things in maths from then on. The basics are very important, and things such as times tables can be built into your routine, but in ways that the children might not realise. You can add times tables when you're sitting at the dinner table. You can add times tables when you're doing the shopping. You're in the car, when you're going on a walk. Little things embedded into your day just to build up the confidence of your child. Confidence is very important. One way that you can do this is by using something called a maths rulebook. Now, a maths rulebook can be any notepad, any little book that you have, but what they can do is they can write all of the rules that they know about maths in there. When they learn something new, they can write it in their book. And then when they come back to it in a few weeks and they've gotten it because they've done so much else, they can look in their maths rulebook and go, yes, I know how to do this because I did it then. And that's really important for building independent learners, which is great for problem solving. Now, stories, songs and games might not seem the best way to teach your child how to learn maths. However, they can be really helpful. You can share books with your children that have specific references to numbers or counting or shape or pattern. In picture books, you can count how many animals there are on a page, how many objects are blue, how many are red, how many are green, how many zebras are there, how many tractors are there. All those kind of things are great for building understanding, quantity. You can look for the shapes of objects or talk about their position. So is a cup on the table? Is the TV next to the sofa? Is the cereal box square? Is it rectangle? Is it circular? All these kinds of things are great for your children. Sing songs and share rhymes that feature numbers and counting. You can search online for great examples of these. The internet is wonderful for this, and there are some help with the tunes and the singing. YouTube is a great resource for this. Now, sand and water. Sand and water is something that you might not think, I don't really want to do this in my house, but it can be great for your children. Learning through exploration is really important for maths. Now, sand and water, you might think, I don't like the idea of that, but let's talk about it. So you can provide lots of different containers in the sandpit, water tray, or bathtub, and talk about the concepts of light, heavy, full, empty. When your child's in the bath, if they have little toys that you can fill with water and pour, you can talk about them being empty and full. And it doesn't have to be a maths lesson. You can just build it into your natural vocabulary and embed it in what you do. And this can make a real difference. Look at how much your container will hold and see if it still holds that amount if you pour it out and then add some more in again. See if you can find two different containers that have the same amount. You can make shapes and patterns with sandcastles or objects when you go to the beach. You can compare weight or capacity of different containers. What can you get in a container? And you can talk about the weight difference between wet sand and dry sand and get your child to feel it, because physically understanding something is really important. Now, imaginative play is really important also because it builds into learning through exploration. You can do the laundry together with your children. You can help them sort clothes into different colours or types. So, for example, shirts and trousers. And this helps them develop an understanding of shape, colour, and patterns. Pairing socks will start an understanding of shape, matching, and counting in twos. That's really important. You can ask your child to help set the table for the family, or for a picnic. You can talk about how many forks, spoons, cups, etc. that you need, and they can count out the right amount. And this is really important for them to build their understanding. And be confident, because confidence leads to success. You could play shops with them. Use pretend or real fruit, vegetables, other items, and pretend to buy and sell. It's a great opportunity for you to encourage them to count and use money. You can get little coins quite cheaply online in certain stores in the high street, and you can get them using pretend money, but it makes them feel confident and it helps them to build their understanding that 2p is more than 1p, and a £5 note, how much change are you going to get from that if you've got vegetables that cost £4, for example? That really helps them to build their understanding. Even when you do cooking, this is really good for your children. You can bake cakes together, talk about the weight of the flour, the volume of milk, the number of eggs, the time it takes you to bake the cake. There are so many different ways you can apply maths to baking, and you can step it up as your child understands more. So you can tell them about the different temperatures of the oven when they understand a little bit more about maths. And building all of these things together is really important for children's understanding. Physically understanding the difference between weight and volume and amount of time is really important. You can use things like leftover pastry as Play-Doh and make your own creations. They will feel confident in creating and they'll enjoy the creativity as a child, but they'll also be building on their understanding without even realizing. And this is excellent. You can decorate cakes with your child and make biscuits with different patterns and different shapes, and they can recognize the differences between them. You can cut vegetables or fruit into different shapes with them. You can even make a pattern out of these, or count how many potatoes, bread rolls, carrots you need to make a family meal. All of these things really help to build on understanding, and they're practical applications that you can really easily do. And that's why they're so good for building understanding. Other things that you can do is talk about your day-to-day routine. Point out the days on the calendar and times on the clock, and use language such as today, tomorrow, yesterday, this morning, now, next, after that, in the future, last week, last month, last year, next year. All these kinds of phrases are important, building children's concept of time. Use the ideas of weeks, weekends, weekdays, the days of the week, the months of the year. they all build into one another. Point out when it's grandma's birthday, when it's sister's birthday, when it's brother's birthday, when they're going to the zoo next. All these things are really important for building children's ideas and pointing things out physically. Doing things together is really important. You can count whilst brushing your teeth, for example. You use a timer so they can build an understanding of how long 2 minutes is and compare it to something that they do in a different part of the day. When tidying up, they could count the bricks back into the tub or the teddies back into the box. All these things really build into their understanding and are really important. Likewise, in the garden, you can count the petals on flowers and leaves on plants, or leaflets on leaves such as ferns. You can look for patterns and spirals in things like heads and pine cones. You can plant seeds and count how many holes, pots you need. You can find shapes in nature. Go on a scavenger hunt, for example, and see how many different shapes you can find. You could set your child a task to go and find patterns. If you could get them to get some roses, some daffodils, some dandelions, some buttercups, all these different types of flowers, and compare them, compare the shapes, compare the colours. This is really good. You can even do things like building a bug house, all the different shapes that you need and all the different bugs that you get in it. And at the same time, you're helping the environment and building on other skills in your child. If you're interested in patterns in nature, you could look up things like the golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence online. And these are other ways to further build understanding and challenge your child. Because challenge helps them to grow. I'm sure you're probably doing this at the moment, going out for a walk, and this is a great way to build your child's understanding when you're doing something so mundane as going for a walk. You can look for the numbers in the environment. There are so many out there. For example, car registrations, look at the numbers on there, the letters, and compare them. Road signs, the numbers on houses. House numbers are a great way to introduce odd and even numbers because you can get your child to count the odd numbers on one side and the even numbers on the other. And you don't even have to tell them that they're odd and even, but understanding the difference between these two types of numbers is really important. You can look for the different shapes of buildings as well and cars. You can stand on a bridge and count the cars, count the yellow cars, count the red cars, count the blue cars, and see how many you get in total. These little things are really important. When you go to the post office, for example, you could say, look, there's a red van in front of the post office. Look at the white cat at the top of Granny's fence. These are all things that you can really easily build into your vocabulary, but will help your child immensely. Hopefully that's given you a good flavour of some of the things that you can do, and there are many, many more ideas if you look online. The important thing is to feel empowered as a parent. You may not feel it, but you can make a huge difference to your child. The support that you give them shapes them and builds confidence in them. Confidence in yourself builds confidence in your children. Remember that what you can give is enough. Now is strange times. What you are giving them is enough for them. You're building their confidence, you're empowering them, and you must feel empowered too. Studies have shown that everyday experiences with parents are fundamental to a child's developing social skill set, and parents provide a child with their very first opportunities to develop a relationship, communicate, and interact. As a parent, you can also model for your child every day how to interact with the people around you. And maths is very important for this. Building on these skills helps you to build the social skills of your child without even realizing. Your best is good enough. You can only try your hardest, and trying your hardest is good enough for your child. I hope that's been some useful information there. If you'd like some further support, please get in contact on our email, on Facebook, or via our website. The links will be in the description. The last thing to say, stay positive, keep smiling, and keep learning.